Air raid sirens blared as the two men walked together.
President Joe Biden has released one of his first 2024 re-election ads, and this is coming at the same time as some stunning new polling. So I'll get to that data later, as well as some other poll that contradicts the poll. So it's all kind of weird, but we'll get to that in a bit. First, I want to show you this ad. It is a minute-long ad. This will be airing on 60 Minutes in battleground states this weekend. That's info from Alex Thompson at Axios. Here is the ad.
It was the first time in modern history
very significant moment on the world stage
that an American president went into a war zone not controlled by the United States.
A nearly 40-hour journey in and out of Ukraine.
President Biden left Washington, D.C. at 4 a.m. on Sunday. He landed in eastern Poland and then took a 9.5-hour train to Kyiv.
He entered Ukraine under the cover of night. And in the morning, Joe Biden walked shoulder to shoulder with our allies in the war-torn streets, standing up for democracy in a place where a tyrant is waging war to take it away.
Air raid sirens blared as the two men walked together.
In the middle of a war zone, Joe Biden showed the world what America is made of. That's the quiet strength of a true leader who doesn't back down to a dictator. Biden, President.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
The quiet strength of a true leader who doesn't back down to a dictator. While this ad doesn't really do anything for me, understand the potential impact here on a 60 Minutes audience in battleground states. The focus here, surprised me that he would focus an entire ad on just this trip, but he's trying to put forward here this idea that he is the strong leader, somebody who is mature, somebody who is not outlandish, not unpredictable, somebody who you can rely on. And for the audience they are aiming this for, again, a 60 Minutes audience, I think this potentially could have, some effect. But I tend to wonder, is this the audience that Biden really needs to be chasing right now? Because ultimately, I think that the biggest potential gains for him come with turnout. And when we're talking about turnout, we're talking largely about younger voters. He needs to get younger people out to vote. Democrats win when turnout is high. Democrats win especially when young voter turnout is high. So understand, we're, 14 months away. So this is just one of his ads. This is a very early ad. But I have to assume going deeper into this campaign, he's going to have to focus more on younger voters and getting people who don't normally vote out to vote for him. Getting the same people he got back in 2020. He needs to get those people out again. This is where we get to some polling. So this came out on CNN today, and this is surprising for a variety of reasons. So here is a screen capture from some of their coverage. Let me just zoom into the actual results here. Biden is losing to everyone except for DeSantis, where he's tied. He's losing to Trump, which is amazing. And Ramaswamy, where he's actually up by 1 percentage point, which is so, considering the rise Ramaswamy's seen recently, and now everyone's going after him. He's not doing too well. So Nikki Haley, with, I guess you could say, the surprising lead here on Joe Biden. I would say that during the debate, Haley came off as maybe the most measured, which is kind of going to what Biden's appeal is. So maybe that, she's carving in there a little bit into Biden support because she comes off as somebody who is not your typical Republican, as she is a woman, while at the same time, someone who, again, appears to be more your standard politician. Trump, the fact that he's losing to Trump, Trump is under 4 indictments. What is it, like 91 charges? And you're losing to Trump in a national poll? Also understanding that, the popular vote, national polling, does not dictate elections. It's the Electoral College. So you're still losing to him in a national poll. I want to show you on Election Day in 2020, so you have some context here. Biden was leading Trump by, on average, 7.2 percentage points. And of course, he ended up, winning that election by millions of votes. But this is essentially around what you should be seeing as a Democratic president or candidate if you are expecting to win on election day. You need a healthy lead in polling to make up for the Electoral College. When you are losing to Biden or losing to Trump, I just don't. It's not looking good. Now, again, 14 months away, a lot to do here. But I'm going to get to some other polls that it just, I don't know. But losing to Pence, losing to Scott, losing to Tim Scott, really? Losing to Chris Christie. I would have expected Chris Christie to maybe be in the Nikki Haley spot here. But regardless, he's still beating Biden. Not looking good. Now, also worth mentioning here, in that same poll from CNN, 2/3 of Democrat-leaning voters don't want Biden as the nominee. Now, this has been sort of consistent basically throughout the past couple of years. Democratic voters want someone else. They mention his age as by far the biggest issue. I wonder what that really means when you're going up against likely Trump, who is almost the same age as Joe Biden, though you could argue Biden shows his age more in the way he looks. Though Trump doesn't look it either. It's just all the makeup he wears. But, the performance, Biden has an issue with stuttering, which people attribute to age, which isn't really an age issue. But anyways, it's not looking good even from the view of Democratic voters. But what I find interesting here is this poll. So this came out, I think, the day before, Morning Consult here. Let me just get the date. So September 6th. Yeah, so this came out yesterday. Biden posts his biggest lead yet in Democratic primary race. So in this CNN poll, you have 2/3 don't want Biden. Yet in this Morning Consult poll, Biden's support is actually growing among the primary race, where you have RFK, who has been losing support, thankfully. Marianne Williamson, who also has lost 1 percentage point here since July. And the someone else has also dropped since April from 8% to now 5% over the past couple months. So they have the option of saying, like, if these Democratic pollster or Democratic voters being polled here don't support Williamson or Kennedy, they could still say someone else, which this is what this means basically. 2/3 don't want Biden. But here they're saying no, Biden over somebody else. It's really hard to, everything is in how questions are framed, what information that people have, I guess who you're polling. But typically when we get to, CNN, SSRS, and Morning Consult, they're both very reliable pollsters. So it's very bizarre to see such a different result depending on the poll here. But Biden support growing among primary voters looks good here, at least compared to what you're seeing on CNN. Now, I want to get to some more data from that CNN poll. Here is their coverage of it, where they go a little deeper into some of the data.
You noted his approval rating is at 39%. 61% of Americans disapprove. This is our brand new poll conducted by SSRS. Look at that approval number over time. Since the spring, he's been hanging out in this very low, troubling approval rating for him, and it really has not fluctuated all that much. Take a look by party. You noted among Democrats, his approval rating is down a bit from where it was in July. He's at 74% among his own party faithful, independents, holding troublingly low for the president at 36%, obviously single digits among Republicans. And look at how Biden stacks up against all of his modern era predecessors at this point in their presidency. I'm just going to draw a line here to show us he's hanging out in this category with Trump and Carter. Something about Trump and Carter, they lost their re-election efforts.
So not looking good for Biden right now. And understand, yes, still early. But this is why he has to use this time to really get voters back. I have to wonder how much of this continued decline in Biden support has to do with what is happening right now with student loan payments. So student loan interest has already resumed, and payments are going to restart in October. And just to give you context here, this is going to be the first time in more than 3 years that federal student loan borrowers will be required to pay their monthly student loan bills. this happening under Joe Biden is only going to hurt him. And I've covered this in the past. He has the ability through a different method to cancel student loan debt. He didn't use that. He used a different way that the Supreme Court was able to block. He is not using the extent of he's not using the power that he has to the extent that he can use it to help students. And that's one example. We can also go to his complete lack of fight against people like Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema in the first 2 years. So as Luke Savage writes here, it's worth remembering that one of the key selling points for Biden during the 2020 primaries was that, unlike Bernie Sanders, he was an experienced deal maker with an agenda that he could actually shepherd through Congress. And of course, Biden couldn't. I don't know how many times people have to be fooled to realize that, a moderate is not going to get things done. They will only capitulate. But here is another example of that. This is from the lever. Most of Biden's social agenda never materialized. So this is the Build Back Better Act, which passed the House, the democratically controlled House, versus the Inflation Reduction Act, which was, of course, the scaled down version under Manchin and Sinema in the Senate. But look at the differences here. I mean, the spending on climate, way down. Childcare and universal pre-K, not there at all. Same thing with paid family medical leave, child tax credit, affordable housing, Medicaid home community care, all just zeros. ACA subsidies, spending on that also down by half. Immigration reform, education workforce aid, Medicare hearing coverage, nothing. And then, of course, drastically reduced spending in other spending areas. So this is an example of the failed policy of pushing to work with both sides. This is the result of that. You have less people engaged, lower chance of getting people out to vote for you, because how are they going to trust you when you promised what you promised and then gave them this? And yeah, you could say, oh, it's not Biden's fault, it's everybody else. Biden as president has the power to put pressure on people. Was there one speech? Was there even like a line released in the media, anything about Biden directly criticizing Joe Manchin or Kyrsten Sinema? Did he try at all to put any public pressure on them in any way? He had the power to try and do more, and he didn't. And now he's living with the result of that. So he's going to have to do some crazy campaigning to get these people back. And ultimately, look, as I've said before, if I could vote, I would absolutely vote against the Republican nominee, which I assume is going to be Trump, but whoever the hell it is, because I know how much worse it can be. We saw how much worse it could be under Donald Trump. That doesn't mean that's going to be an appealing message or an effective message to get people out to vote for Joe Biden.